Well, we're going to take you live now to the Old Bailey, where the former Assistant Chief Constable Paul Fullwood is making a statement after the killer of 6-year-old Rikki Neave in '94 was jailed for life today.
And it's a promise that we've kept. Historical murders are notoriously difficult to investigate, and this came with significant challenges, but we've used every tool available to overcome these obstacles. This result was possible thanks to a committed and hard-working team closely linked into the Crown Prosecution Service and the support from Rikki's family and witnesses involved in the original case. Rikki was a 6-year-old little boy. He was a kind and cheeky chap who was cruelly taken under the most horrendous of circumstances. His memory lives on through his family, who've had to deal with his loss for the rest of their lives. But now they finally know, they have answers. They know what happened, and they know who took Rikki from them. And we really, really hope this gives them some peace. For years, Watson had hidden away, knowing he was responsible for Rikki's murder and thinking he'd gotten away with it. But this is no longer the case. He will spend years behind bars, and the truth is finally out. Thank you. Happy to take any questions. Certainly. Former Assistant Chief Constable Paul Fullwood.
What hope does she have of getting that overturned?
I mean, our investigation has always been focused on the murder of Rikki Neave. We've never ever looked at the child cruelty offences. Of course, that was relevant in the first trial, and of course in our trial with this conviction today, over the last couple of months. But actually, from our perspective, our focus has always been about Rikki's murder and Rikki's death, and that's where our focus has been. So we can't comment on that particular point.
How would you describe the initial investigation? Ruth has said that the Cambridge police at the time maliciously went after her.
I mean, I think in 1994, how murder was investigated then is very different from how we investigate murder now. They didn't have the benefit of dedicated murder teams. Disclosure regimes were very different. The training of officers were very, very different. The governance around investigations was very, very different. And forensics was nowhere near where it is now. And I think it's fair to say that that wouldn't happen now by today's standards and today's murders. I think from the original investigation, and I've gone on record saying this before and I'll say it again, we think that it was a tunnel vision investigation. We think they were very much focused on one particular line of inquiry, which took them away. We can understand how the direction they went, but actually, by today's standards, that just wouldn't happen. We'd like to think that wouldn't happen.
Did they make mistakes?
I think by the acquittal of Ruth Neave for the first trial and our conviction of James Watson, absolutely, they charged the wrong person. But without a shadow of a doubt, today was about justice for Rikki and about making sure that James Watson was convicted for the dreadful, dreadful murder of 6-year-old Rikki Neave.
Do you believe is Ruth owed an apology now?
So Ruth Neave, I've actually apologised to Ruth. I've apologised to her for the length of time this investigation has taken to bring justice for Rikki, and I can understand in terms of the hurt and the pain that she's gone through, and I've actually spoken with Ruth on a number of occasions and given her my own personal apology with regards to how we've got to where we are, and I wish we'd resolved it much, much quicker.
Do you believe he's ever shown any remorse since the conviction?
I've not seen any remorse from James Watson. I've seen somebody who is a fantasist, a compulsive liar, a sexual predator. The judge's remarks today in terms of a sexual interest in young children, the way that Rikki was murdered, the way it was laid out, the history with previous girlfriends, animals dead, etc., etc. And I've not seen any evidence of James Watson showing any remorse for the dreadful, dreadful murder of Rikki Neave.
What is DNA evidence on the database at the first?
No, it wasn't. DNA wasn't. There wasn't a DNA database at that particular time.
You've apologised to Rikki for that, but she doesn't have a problem with your investigation. What she has a problem with is the initial investigation. wants an apology from Cambridgeshire Police as a whole, not just you as an individual, will she get that apology?
So I think it's fair to say, and I go back to, I've apologised to Ruth Neave and the family for the length of time the investigation's taken, and mistakes were made. There were lines of inquiry that were never followed up, and quite clearly the constabulary at the time went down a particular road which took us completely away from the real person responsible for the murder of Rikki Neave. I think in terms of an apology, I've given my apology to Ruth. All those officers and all those people involved in the inquiry at that time, they've all retired, they've all moved on. They're nowhere to be linked into the constabulary at this moment in time. You know, that's something that we'll continue to have conversations with the Neaves around, but they've got my personal apology about what's happened and the dreadful, dreadful experience they've been through.
Do you think so much of the evidence, we get the DNA, but so much of the evidence was actually there to have charged James Watson within weeks, within days of the murder?
No, I don't think so. I mean, you know, when I reflect back to 1994, and this is what people need to sort of put their mindset around this, is that this was shortly after the Jamie Bolger murder. There was a massive, massive focus on Cambridge Constabulary at the time, a lot of pressure, and I can understand in terms of actually why they went down a particular road. I can understand it. However, the way that they dealt with murder in 1994 is very, very different from how we deal with it today. They didn't have the benefit of forensics. They didn't have the benefit of dedicated homicide murder teams. They didn't have the benefit of governance around them in terms of experts and people who would give advice and guidance as we would have now today. So I don't probably accept at that particular time that, you know, they'd have solved it any quicker. There were missed opportunities, and there were missed opportunities, and, you know, there's lessons that have been learned, and those are lessons that will be learned in terms of moving forward that we will know and, you know, remind other people involved in homicide investigation going forward.
Well, we're going to leave that statement from former Assistant Chief Constable Paul Fullwood apologising to the family of Rikki Neave as his killer is sentenced at the Old Bailey today for Rikki's murder almost 3 decades ago. James Watson has been sentenced to life in prison with a minimum of 16 years.